What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to talk through 7 trade targets for Week 9 of the fantasy football season. Right now, we have about 2 days between now and kickoff on Sunday, which should give you some time to make some moves here. We have some buy highs, some buy lows. I have a sell, of course, at the end as well. So I have trade targets across the board for whatever you could possibly need. If you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe. Let's go.
Like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
Now, first up, our first trade target is going to be Malik Nabers. Now, we're going to start with a luxury buy, right? He's not, of course, some low-key pickup by any means, but there's some overreacting going on with Malik Nabers, all right? Like, I'm already hearing whispers. Like, there's genuine accounts. Now, of course, like, these accounts are a joke, right? NFL notifications at NFL Noti. But it is funny, man. There is this like, Twitterification or TikTok generation of fans who are so reactionary and just base all of their opinions off of what they just saw. And we've now seen Malik Nabers have a dud in primetime. We've seen some ugly games in general from the Giants in primetime. And I don't think that we're really giving Malik Nabers his flowers in real time as we should. Right now, right, this is Brian, and I love, you guys know, I love Brian Thomas Jr., I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but to say that Malik Nabers is at number 3 among rookie wide receivers is absolutely nuts. If we look at points per game all time for rookie wide receivers, he is behind just Odell Beckham and Randy Moss since 1998. His 18.9 points per game, or you can round it up to 19 points per game, is ahead of Jamar Chase, Puka, Justin Jefferson, Julio Jones, and Brian Thomas is at the head of this list in terms of all time. Now, 6 games is a small-ish sample, but this is a guy who should bounce back. He hasn't had a 20-plus PPR point game since week 4, but he is still just shy of 19 points per game on the entire season, and he had 13 targets last week versus the Steelers. The Steelers are just a really good defense. Now, of course, it's always going to be pretty. Daniel Jones is a quarterback. He could potentially get benched for Drew Lock, but when we're talking about this kind of volume for a player, I'm just going to be chasing the volume. I think we're going to see a bounce back coming soon here for Malik Nabers. I would still have him as like a fringe top 6 wide receiver rest of season. Now, of course, if you want to see my exact rest of season rankings, that'll be over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. Every single like Wednesday morning, I come out with my rest of season rankings. And I'll actually check right now where I ended up with Malik Nabers when I went through. But I have like my top 50 running backs, my top 60 wide receivers, flex rankings, all of that, so you can go out there and make trades. There should be links in the description and the comment section down below to get the rest of season rankings on the Patreon. Yeah, Malik Nabers is my wide receiver 5 rest of season. That's just where I have him. The volume is too good to pass up. I think he's like 2nd in expected points per game behind Cooper Kupp. That's the kind of volume we are talking about here, and I would just bet against this slump kind of sustaining. Now, when we talk about trades here, this is what I do on these trade target videos is we head over to fantasycalc.com/database. You can see it at the top up here. Now, we have real leagues, redraft, 2 to 3 assets in the trade, 1 quarterback, 10 to 14 teamer, half or full PPR. What are people trading for Malik Nabers right now? I don't know. Wow, okay, so that already starts off strong. I can't do Kyron from Nabers. Let's see. I would do Aaron Jones for Malik Nabers plus. That's pretty easy for me. I would do Puka for Nabers straight up if that's on the table, especially with this like Puka knee issue going on here. What else sticks out? Yeah, I mean, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, Dobbins for Nabers, I would. I think JT for Nabers is dead even. It just comes down to what position you would need there. I mean, I like this as well. If you can take, like, I don't even think that Aaron Jones is a sell, but if you can take, like, a high-end RB2 type plus a player, especially if you want to sell in the optimism of this Deontay Johnson trade, definitely do that. What else? Yeah, like, Swift for Malik Nabers. I mean, come on now. Adams and Dobbins for Nabers as well. Yes, please. Brian Thomas and Kareem Hunt. Yes, please. So you can do one of these 2-for-1 deals. Yeah, DJ Moore and Rashad White. I'm not saying you're going to get these type of deals in your league, but a 2-for-1 like this where you take like a wide receiver 2 and like a fringe RB1 or like a high-end RB2, high-end wide receiver 2, and you can go get Malik Nabers. I absolutely would, because again, I think people are just down on him because you haven't had that elite production since week 4, but I do think that better days are ahead for Malik Nabers. Now, our next buy candidate here, I get a question a lot, right? Running backs. I was going to say they're scarce, but they're not scarce this year, right? Like, it seems like they are all crushing. But if you're weak at the RB2 spot, I get that question all the time. I'm usually very hesitant to pay up at RB2, right? A lot of our draft strategy is on the back of, well, you can just stream the position, right? You can go get a player off of waivers, shove him in at RB2, right? Like the Chuba Hubbards of the world, the Tank Bigsbys of the world, the Bucky Irvings of the world. But if you do feel this pressure, especially if you're in a shallow league, right? If you only have like a one flex spot and your starting lineup is super, super important, I don't mind spending up to make sure your RB2 isn't putting a hole in your lineup every week. So if I was to go out there and buy an RB2, I will say, first of all, before you go into the range that we're about to go in here, right, I'll just say it. So we're going to have Rhamondre Stevenson as our next buy. Before you go to a Rhamondre, I definitely, if you have the ammo to do it, definitely shoot higher than this, right? Like shoot up there for Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, Bijan, like, you know, any of those guys in the top 12. I don't know if I said Mixon already, but, you know, like Mixon, any of those guys, Kenneth Walker, try that first. Because, again, I would rather pay the premium to have an elite RB1 than kind of like pay sticker price of an RB2, because these guys come and go, man, right? We've seen with like Javonte Williams, and we've seen with like Najee Harris, where they have like really, really cold streaks, and then they're like good for a little bit, and then they can cool off. That's what we've seen with Rhamondre as well. But I am buying high on the kind of ascension here, where he now had a like injury, he had like some fumble issues, and his snaps declined, right? From week 1, 80%, then 71%. This is the Fantasy Life utilization report, by the way. And then that fell to 46%, and then there was like this fumble issue, and he was like a little banged up. But now we've returned to that week 1 usage here. 79% of the snaps, second highest since week 1. 74% of the rush attempts, highest on the entire season. 56% of the routes, highest since week 2. The targets weren't there, but I think that those are going to come as well. He had 23 touches, his most since week 2 last week, and he's coming off his best game of the year. I think that I would be buying high off of that, and he has the 7th easiest schedule rest of season, according to JJ Zacharyson. I will say rest of season, you know, points allowed, strength of schedule stuff is a little shaky. I do like JJ's, he has a data dump over on his Patreon that I like to look at, but I don't know, like every metric's going to tell you something different between what the strength of schedule is rest of season, but it's a lighter schedule than you would expect. Now, when we talk about what we can trade for Rhamondre, I'm hoping it's not a ton. I'm hoping it's not anything too crazy. Let's see. Because, again, you are buying high a little bit. Now, this is through the lens of you're like 3-5. It's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. Your RB2 is killing you. Yeah, wow. If I was 3-5, I just want to preface that. If I was 3-5 and I needed a win very, very badly, I'd want a receiver a little better than Brian Thomas. But Nico for Rhamondre, Brian Thomas, I would do that. I would. That's the highest I would go. Now, this is like much cheaper. Like Mason, I will say if you can turn Mason, he's pretty much done at this point, right? Like Garendo is making it so that when Mason does come back, it'll be a split. Or McCaffrey's looming behind him. Mason can't stay healthy with the shoulder injury. So if you can take Mason in a piece and go get Rhamondre, absolutely do that. Let's see. Does anything else stick out? I mean, I don't know if you're going to get a lot of these lateral type of moves, but I would prefer Rhamondre to Najee rest of season. Pretty easily. What else? Yeah, like Jameson for Rhamondre, sure. Kincaid's not enough of a positional advantage at tight end for me to tell you not to trade Kincaid for Rhamondre, Dobbs for Rhamondre, Mooney for Rhamondre. Yeah, so you can still buy him pretty low. DJ Moore for Rhamondre is like that's like as high as I'll go. That's my tipping point for Rhamondre, is like a back end wide receiver 2 price tag. But again, if you're in a 2 wide receiver 1 flex and DJ Moore's not getting in your starting lineup on the regular, and your RB2 blows, and it's like, you know, Rico Dowdle, I don't hate that idea of kind of paying sticker price for Rhamondre. Now, our next buy candidate here, this is just sort of taking advantage of a player on a bye week, right? This is going to be George Pickens. So George Pickens is on bye. He's not playing. He's coming off a down game. So I think that you can buy low if that's on the table, because he had a really good game versus the Jets. It was like, okay, Russell Wilson has arrived. He had his first touchdown of the year, and then he kind of came back down to earth last week. Now, on primetime, he did have like the weird double tap, 1 foot, touchdown didn't count. I think that he played much better than the box score showed, But I think that this down game, right, so 11.4 PPR points going into a bye week does give you a nice little window to buy here, because the thing to really understand is what Russ brings to this offense is more volume and then also more trust with Pickens, where he just lobs it up and lets Pickens kind of go to work on what he does best with, contested catches. So with Fields, they averaged 167 passing yards per game. That's like a bottom 5 number. With Russ, they've been at 259 and a half passing yards per game. I don't know why I screwed that up so bad, but he had like 260 and then 259. So right in like that 260 yards passing area, that is a lot of volume and yards to go around for these pass catchers, and Pickens will be at the top of that totem pole. So I do think that better days are ahead, and J.J. Zachariason, again, has him with the 4th easiest strength of schedule with his remaining schedule. So should be a really, really nice kind of takeoff for George Pickens. If the guy who has Pickens is like 3-5 or 2-6 and needs a win and can't afford to have Pickens on his bench, I would go out there and kick the tires on Pickens. Let's see, what is he going for? All right, now come on now. That's I can't do that. Cannot do Bucky and Devontae. This isn't going to work, but Madison for Pickens, easy. Deontay for Pickens, very easy. Zay Flowers for Pickens. I think I would do that as well. I would trade. If somebody wanted Zay Flowers this week to avoid a bye week, I would do that. Like, that's what I would be doing a lot of with Pickens, is like offering a wide receiver so that they could avoid a bye week. Like, guys that are playing this week that I have behind Pickens rest of season would be like, man, Waddle, DJ Moore, Zay Flowers. I don't know if you're going to be able to get DeAndre Hopkins like this one, Deontay Johnson, JSN, especially JSN because DK Metcalf is out. If I could trade JSN straight up for Pickens and say, hey, here's JSN, avoid a bye week, have him, and I'll take Pickens off your hands, I think that would work very well. Now, moving on to these other trades. Yeah, like ETN for Pickens, that's easy. Chase Brown for Pickens, I would do that as well, right? Like, we don't want to overpay. Like, at the end of the day, he's my wide receiver 22 rest of season. So back end wide receiver 2, don't pay everything in the world. But if the guy who has Pickens on bye is a struggling team, see if you can kind of take advantage of that and give him some more, like someone maybe that's in like a smash matchup in this week. Now, moving off of that, like maybe even like, can you do like Jacoby Myers in like a small piece? I know Jacoby Myers is kind of a guy who's popping in week 9 projections right now. Somebody else that I want to buy is just somebody that's kind of just been criminally underrated all year, and that's Chuba Hubbard. On every single trade value chart, on every single trade value ranking, rest of season ranking, he's going to be lower because of Jonathan Brooks in the background. Now, the issue is that Jonathan Brooks, I don't know if he's going to play this year. I'll take that on the chin because I like Jonathan Brooks this year. I thought he was a great player, but they might just treat this year as a redshirt year for Jonathan Brooks, right? The team sucks. I don't know if he's having any setbacks or if they're just being very cautious, but we had a report here. Jonathan Brooks is not expected to play this week, but he has to be activated before early next week or miss the season. Week 10 is in Germany, and Week 11 is the Panthers' bye. Maybe Week 12 is when we will first see Brooks with an outside chance at Week 10. So pretty brutal run out for Brooks, and then even then he'll be ramping back up. So I don't mind trading for Chuba Hubbard, getting fine production, buying lower. It's like maybe the owner feels some pressure that Brooks will be back soon. And if you need some short-term running back points, let's say you have like McCaffrey or something, and you just are kind of scrambling for running back points, I don't mind the idea of going after Chuba Hubbard. Jeff Mueller also adds here, Brooks must be officially activated by Tuesday, November 5th. Last day of his 21-day window if he's going to play at some point this year. And if he doesn't, then he's just not going to play the rest of the year. I think that he will. And then again, probably like ease in week 12. He's going to be somebody where, man, it is so slim that he pays off his draft cost. Right now, if he's going to pay off, it's going to be with start slow week 12, week 13, week 14, and then like the fantasy playoffs of like week 14, 15, 16, or more like 15, 16, 17. He somehow beats out Hubbard, or Hubbard, like, you almost need a Hubbard injury. You probably need Hubbard to, like, sprain his ankle. Brooks comes in, full workhorse from weeks, 15, 16, 17, and he wins fantasy championships for that to be a worthwhile pick. So a lot of us are wearing egg on our face for that one. And then with, like, Chuba Hubbard, he's just been really good, man. And I will say it's also a buy low opportunity because he's been bad the last 2 weeks, but you can see, like, consistently 15 plus carries in 5 of his last 6 games, a touchdown in 3 of his last 5. Like, he is just getting a lot of volume as the workhorse. He gets the Saints this week, who are allowing the 8th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, And JJ has them with the 6th easiest schedule over his next 4, 12th easiest over the rest of the season. So Hubbard, I think it's a nice low-key buy. Again, I would just do it like very cheap. Somebody that you kind of just expect to be an RB2 for the next 2 weeks. Then he goes on bye, and you kind of see what happens after that. Let's see. What's he going for here over on Fantasy Calc? Yeah, like if I could do Jacoby for Chuba, I would. Deontay for Chuba, I would. Man, JSN for Chuba is right on the line. That's another one of those where if it's 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, like what's the start 7? Yeah. So that's what it is. 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. If JSN is never making your starting lineup, and again, your RB2 is killing you every single week, this is a trade I would make. Mooney for Hubbard, sure. Hopkins for Hubbard, sure. Dowdle for Hubbard. That's like a coin flip, but I probably prefer Hubbard to Dowdle as well. Yeah, for sure. I would actually say for sure. I was just looking at where, I have Dowdle RB44 rest of season right now. Judy for Hubbard, that's another easy one as well. So again, like this should be somebody you should be able to buy for cheap and then pencil in as like a top 20 guy the next 2 weeks at minimum. And then a guy that we mentioned last week and was actually on the thumbnail did not come through for us, but someone that I still believe in as a really good buy is Deebo, especially with a down game. And now he gets a bye to sort of, get his health on track. Deebo's been banged up all year. He's had some bumps and bruises, then pneumonia. Give him a bye week to reset. He comes back, and right now you have a 3-way tie in the NFC West. The Niners are going balls to the wall to try and win this division, win games. There is no taking the foot off the gas pedal for this team. So I think if Deebo's healthy, especially knowing the usage, right? We showed this last week. The usage without Ayuk is really, really good. From Dwayne McFarland, since 2021, when Deebo is on the field without Ayuk, 38% of the targets, 41% of the air yards, 4.88 yards per out run. Now, of course, some of those come down after last week, but it's like a small dent in the sample. So I'm not really holding last week against him that much. Now, what is Deebo going for? Because, again, I do wonder with the bye week if you can buy low. Because this is another one of those. Like I guess like the theme of this video is kind of like finding these players on bye or underperforming on like a 3-5 team, a 2-6 team, and seeing if you can pry them away. Now, with Deebo, yeah, like there might be a guy in your league, this might be wishful thinking, but a guy in your league who needs a win this week, trying to just avoid the bye, just give him a wide receiver fill-in. I would do Waddle. I'm trying to see. So I have Deebo wide receiver 11 rest of season. So if I could trade him McLaurin, I would. If I could trade him, Marvin Harrison Jr., I would. Amari Cooper, Josh Downs, any of those guys. If I had to add a piece on top, sure. I would do Pollard trade up for Deebo. You can take Alec Pierce out of there if you'd like to. Amari Cooper and Rachaad White. Yeah, that's easy. Devontae Smith for Deebo is actually really, really tight. I would do that. That's the highest I would pay. And it would just be like, hey, here's Devontae Smith. You can have this guy to fill in for the bye week, and I'll take Deebo off of your hands. And then that's probably where I cut it, right? Like Devontae, sure. McLaurin for Deebo, sure. Brian Thomas for Deebo, sure. Kareem Hunt for Deebo. I mean, come on. Even if you want to do Kareem Hunt in a piece, like Kareem Hunt and Josh Downs, I would love for Deebo. So I think, and not even that Downs is like a sell for me, just kind of the range of receiver that was like off the top of my head. And then this one, what's this, Worthy and McLaurin? I probably would, but that's probably like the most expensive that I would do. Now, after that, I believe that we have our just one sell for this video. So we had 5 buys, 1 sell. Let's talk about Michael Pittman. Now, here's the tough part. You guys know me. I'm a big numbers guy, right? Like, I use all of my arguments. I use numbers. The issue is with Pittman is I can't really show a numbers-based argument because of the QB instability. But if you guys remember, Pittman had a few weeks ago, he was supposed to go on IR, and now he's just been toughing out this back injury, and he has been brutal. If you search through like Colts Twitter, they're all begging Michael Pittman to get off the damn field and take a rest and, go on IR, just like take a few games off. Like, he is clearly not himself right now. So my idea is that if you can take the optimism of Joe Flacco for these pass catchers, right? Like, of course, bump Josh Downs all the way up, bump Michael Pittman all the way up because of Joe Flacco, I would be sort of holding your horses on Pittman. Like, I'm not excited to start Pittman this week. I didn't really put him all that high. He does not look like himself. Benjamin Solik, if you guys want to go see that Twitter thread, I would definitely look it up. He has like 10 plays of clips from the game of Michael Pittman just not being himself, right? Just like dropping passes, not being strong at the catch point, not getting in and out of his breaks quickly. Like, he is just a shell of himself right now. You have Angelo FF here, who is a film guy on Twitter that I trust. Michael Pittman Jr. needs to not play another snap until he's healthy. Give me a trio of Pierce, Downs, Mitchell in the meantime. So pretty much everyone that's been watching these games is saying the same thing, that Pittman has kind of been a liability. So I think that, yes, Flacco is going to help, but Pittman's been so bad, I think that he's just going to take a backseat behind Josh Downs. And if someone wants to pay wide receiver 2 prices for Michael Pittman, I absolutely would let them pay that. Now, of course, that's all good in theory. What are people actually paying for Michael Pittman? I hope it's something. I'm trying to see, where did I rank him rest of season? Yeah, I still have him wide receiver 42, even with Flacco. Can I turn Pittman into Javonte? You know, if I needed a running back, I'd be fine with that. Pittman into Jameson's kind of interesting. I do love this, like Pittman in a piece to go get Metcalf, especially with Metcalf hurt right now, right? He's out for this week. Somebody doesn't have the patience for that. I would do that. This one's interesting. Michael Pittman and Jalen Hurts for Cup. I probably if I was in like a weird spot where I like drafted Jaden Daniels late as well, I would. Michael Pittman for Chubb, I'm all good there. Pittman in a piece to get Nico, sure. It's going to be much better than Braylon, but I would. Michael Pittman for Devontae easily. Pittman and Kareem Hunt for Mixon easily. Pittman for Keon Coleman and Tank. Probably not. Unless if I needed the running back, right? Like it's what? This is 2 flex, 2 wide receivers. If I needed the running back in maintaining depth with Keon Coleman there, I actually don't hate that. That's like about as much as I would be willing to spend. Pittman for, I mean, there's no way. But if you can use Pittman to get a tight end upgrade, I actually would. Pittman for DJ Moore, I mean, easily. Let me see if I can find like one more realistic trade here. Pittman, yeah, dude, like we talked about earlier with Rhamondre, if you can turn Pittman into Rhamondre, do that 1,000%. Now, I also want to do one last bonus buy, and I left it after the sell with Pittman because he played last night, right? So you can't trade for him until the early window of next week, but this is one to keep in your back pocket, hit up the owner on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and get this trade done. But give me Breece Hall, man. Every other week, people on Twitter go crazy. We have Chris O'Brien here hitting him with the reality is that Breece Hall is an RB2 in fantasy, and we just have to accept that. And that's kind of what I was talking about up top with Malik Nabers, and the thing that really annoys me with just kind of the space right now in terms of fantasy football, in terms of just covering the game, and I think that it's kind of some of the NBA spilling over too, of just kind of like that realm of the internet and how they talk about players and how it's like it's so reactionary, it's so what just happened, and everyone loves to like everyone wants to sprint to declare a running back dead or declare him an RB1 overall rest of season, and there's no in between whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, Breece being an RB2 rest of season is just kind of nonsense. Since Todd Downing took over as OC, right? So that came 4 weeks ago, I believe. Week 7, 8, 9. Might have been week 6. It was against the Bills. It was Bills, Steelers, Patriots, then the game last night. So 4 games of Todd Downing. 17.1 points per game. That would put him as like a back-end RB1. I still think that there's better days ahead as well where his usage came back to normal, right? So last week in week 8, we have some from John Daigle here. Breece Hall had 17 touches. Braylon Allen had 12. But if you look at the rest of the games, right, so that was last night's game and the 2 before, right? So outside of the Patriots game, 58 Breece touches, 10 for Braylon Allen. Last night, Braylon Allen didn't get home even with good usage, but this was a team that had 3 passing touchdowns and a team that was playing versus a Texans defense that is allowing the 25th most points to running backs right now, a really, really good rush defense. I want to say they're a top 5 rush defense when you look at just like rushing yards allowed. So it wasn't a good matchup in general. The wide receivers got home. Aaron Rodgers got home. It just wasn't Breece's night, but it was good to see his usage bounce back to what we saw the first 2 games with Downing, where he had 20-plus points per game. So again, to me, he's still a stud, and JJ has him with the 3rd easiest rest of season schedule. I actually just want to see. I'm going to pull it up real quick, but it should be a lot of really easy matchups down the stretch for Breece, especially like his playoff schedule is really good, right? So he gets Arizona, he gets Indy, Seattle, Miami, and then his playoff schedule is Jacksonville, which is a smash, Rams, which I think is like decent. Buffalo is going to be the tough one for week 17, but again, 3rd easiest rest of the way. I think he is going to have a really, really nice back half of the season here. So if you want to buy Breece Hall for the low, I absolutely would. Now, our last thing I wanted to add, this is not a trade target at all, but if you're watching this video and you made it to the end, I want to treat you. I said something about it on the premium side of the Patreon Discord earlier as well, but go add Julius Chestnut. Now, there's a part of me that hates when I do this, or hates the reactions. Like every time that I tell the Discord, like, hey, go add this player, I get asked like, okay, am I dropping Javonte Williams for him? No, don't. I cannot stress enough. If you are in a 10-team, 5-bench league, do not listen to me whatsoever. But if you're in a 12-teamer with like 7 bench spots, and your starting running back this week is like Rico Dowdle, go add Julius Chestnut. All right. If you have a second quarterback, if you have a second tight end, drop them for Julius Chestnut. Right now, you can see this tweet from Davenport. There is no sign of Tony Pollard or Tyjae Spears at practice. Tyjae Spears has already been listed out as out for this game. Tony Pollard is at risk of being out as well. And that would leave just Julius Chestnut to get those reps as the running back. Now, of course, it's not sexy. It's not beautiful. But it's the game we play. And you might want to get out ahead of it now, because if Tony Pollard gets listed as out, his projections are going to jump. Everyone's going to race to the waiver wire to go get him. Be the early one to it. Get Julius Chestnut. But again, do not drop good players for Julius Chestnut. It's only if you have expendable players on your bench and if he would have any chance of being in your starting lineup if Pollard can't go. If Pollard can't go, he'd be like a fringe RB2. He'd be like, somewhere in like that RB25 area in terms of his projection. But when you're down bad at the position, that is going to play. Now, that's going to do it for us today. As always, if you enjoy, make sure you check out the Patreon. Make sure you check out the channel. Leave a like, subscribe. Over on the Patreon, we have the rest of season rankings. We have weekly rankings. We have waiver wire, article, all of that good stuff. Patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can find that in the description and the comment section down below. But if you can't support there, just leave a like, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen.